Hi, welcome back to another ET Talk. I'm Cole Camplese, and this is episode 2. I think that means we're on a streak. I don't know where the streak will end, but I know today it sits at 2. And after last week or last episode, we decided that after sitting down with Amanda, we would go right to the source and talk to two of our colleagues here at the University of Texas at Austin, Cody and Mario. Cody and Mario have been leading our AI charge here for at least the last year, maybe a little bit longer. And it just brings me great pleasure to have you guys here today. So welcome to the Union Underground studio and episode 2 of ET Talk.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Sure thing. Guys, before we get started, we'll do a quick little introduction. Mario, why don't you give us a little bit of who you are and what's your story, man?
Sure. Yeah. So hello, everyone. My name is Mario Guerra. I'm the director of our Enterprise Learning Technology and Innovation team. I've been at the university for almost 23 years now, and still enjoy my job now more than ever, I think. So super excited to have this conversation today.
Great, Mario. Cody?
Hey, y'all, I'm Cody Antunez. I work for Mario and obviously Cole. I'm a senior IT manager and working on pretty much everything AI related at UT Austin.
Yeah. Guys, you know what I was thinking about actually on the way to work today, and Mario and I were talking about it on our way over. Just the journey of this last year, sort of the maybe insane, maybe not insane idea to try to do something at scale with AI at the University of Texas. When you guys think about it, think back to like September, October of last year and how you were feeling with what was going on in the world of AI. Cody, can you just where were you at that point? Like before you switched over into this space, you were working in the identity and access management team, right?
Exactly.
And how were you thinking sort of like working with your colleagues at that layer of the organization about sort of the rise of AI and what it was going to mean to us? Like I would think first, you were probably thinking about your identity and access management team, I'm guessing.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's interesting is, so our ISO office brought OpenAI and ChatGPT onto campus first.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, with the IAM team, we worked closely with ISO. And so at that time I had talked to Cam Beasley and he was like, hey, you should get a ChatGPT account. And I had a personal one already. I didn't know we could have that at UT at the time.
Yeah.
Once I figured that out, I had asked my manager, Marta, at the time, can we get licenses? And she was like, yeah, sure. You know, I used it personally. Some folks on our team had used ChatGPT personally. And there was mixed utility at the time. But we all realized very quickly what that would mean for our team and our work.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. It was very quick. And ISO was already using ChatGPT for a number of things.
Mm-hmm.
And through that, there was a couple user groups, both on campus and off campus, that started kind of our journey into how can we use this in the identity and access management space? What does identity mean in terms of these tools?
Yeah.
So like when you are calling in an action through an agent or a tool call, how do we know who that user is? How do we know that that is safe access to whatever tool's being called or the data that's connected
right
at the other side of that tool? So yeah, that's how we started kind of getting into AI on campus.
So really, even before we were engaged in anything programmatically, you were seeing like hints of people realizing that if I can wedge this in here, I can start to make a difference with
Absolutely.
this technology.
And there was a lot of shadow usage on campus because
Yeah.
we didn't have many other offerings. At the time, it was just ChatGPT Enterprise, which you needed to have the budget for it on campus. A lot of folks on campus, we're a huge campus.
Yeah.
A lot of folks didn't know that even existed. So everybody had personal accounts.
Yeah.
And at that time, you know, you had ChatGPT, you had a lot of other vendors who were providing AI services and tools. And so this shadow usage on campus, and shadow usage being folks using their own personal accounts,
Mm-hmm.
whether they were saying they did or not, was prevalent.
Yeah.
And we know that now, having the vendor relationships to tell us at that time period, this many people were logging into our services on campus who had these current affiliations. So we know that AI was being used at that time.
Yeah.
It just wasn't being talked about. It wasn't being advertised, like in terms of us as providing services to campus, but it was prevalent.
Yeah. And, you know, at that time, I was busy quietly working with an outside vendor, Kung Fu AI, that you guys have worked with.
Right.
And we really focused their work on helping us establish what a governance model might look like. But the whole conversation of a campus-wide AI platform was not being exposed at that point.
Well, the only enterprise tool available at that point was Copilot, just Copilot Chat.
Yeah.
Right. So we had that available, the free version. Well, with a university account.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
But that was the only enterprise tool at that time that we were offering campus. There was nothing enterprise
Right.
with the other vendors, some stronger tool set available. So it was an interesting time. And let me just say, one of the most important things you said when you started, Cole, because we were at that point scrambling in March of 23 when you started.
Yeah.
We had, we were trying to offer
24.
services. Was it 24? Geez. You said, I think we need to pause to make progress.
Yeah.
That was one of the smartest things you said when you started.
And that was right after I started, I think.
That was right after
I
you
remember
started.
that conversation. And we were talking very early, because the other thing is guys, we didn't really know where an AI initiative would fit in a university higher ed IT organization, right? It was like, I'm old enough to remember when the web came to higher education and to education in general. And I got to Penn State in about 1998 after being out in the corporate world for a while, and just remembering, like, recognizing that the internet was not like one narrow thing, that the internet was something that was going to fundamentally change the entire business model of education. And what I mean by that is, it's taken us 30 years, but our campuses, by and large, all of them are by and large digital. You pay your bills online, you schedule online. It took us 30 years to adopt the internet. And I think that that's an interesting thing. But where do you put that, right? Because there's like a web shop. Is that the engineering team? You have front-end design. You have all these things. And some of that is coming true again with AI, that where does it really fit? And I think, Mario, you and I really started talking about this idea. How does it influence teaching and learning? Because really at the time, your sole focus was
Correct.
teaching and learning. And I think our early conversations were about what the heck are we going to do? We had Sage sort of as a thought piece, a vision piece.
Yep.
Sage is a learning sciences backed AI tutor that faculty can train using various instructional models and pedagogical approaches to sort of tune the way that the agent works with students through the course material that's available in Canvas. But at the time, it was a dream, and it was a partnership with the provost office.
Correct. Yeah.
How did you see that sort of early, hey, we're going to dip our toe in the water, but we're going to do it in pure teaching and learning space? Did you think that that's the right place to start, or how did you see that at the time?
Yeah, so I think your comment earlier about my sole focus being teaching and learning is kind of where my head was at that point, right? We've got a new technology. How are we going to integrate that into the teaching and learning ecosystem in a way that is safe, protects intellectual property, protects student data, all of the things that when we deploy services, we think about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with the idea coming out of the provost office and a willing partner like Amazon Web Services to help us with the back end, we saw a path, right?
Yeah.
That was a path that we saw. We were already approved to work with that vendor. We didn't have to go through hurdles and hoops to go through contracting. So we just started to play, right? We just started to build, play, work with our pedagogy experts to make sure that learning science backed theory was integral to the platform.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of set us apart a little bit. That was the one positive.
That was the differentiator.
Correct.
Like actually having it be, designed by UT, trained by UT faculty for
Correct.
UT students, I think is sort of the slogan that Julie Schell and her team used with that. And what differentiated it was the application of various learning style theory to get it to interact in ways that, a normal teacher would. A normal faculty member employs multiple pedagogical approaches when she is working to either coalesce a conversation in her class or get students engaged in group activity or just standard lecture and recall. Those are different approaches and they require different techniques. And that's why that one was so interesting to me, because as you guys know, my background is in learning technology.
Yeah, right.
And so I was taken aback by this idea that you could unleash AI in a harnessed way, because I was still learning at that outset. But guys, I got to tell you that what I saw there was sort of the same thing if we go back to the adoption and diffusion of other innovations. Like, it was limited, right? It was a population that would select in. It wasn't open-ended. It wasn't a place for students to go and explore and do things. It was really it was a solution.
Oh yeah,
right?
that's a good way to put it.
More than a platform. So Cody, I got to ask you, like, when I came back and I said, look, what we're going to do is we're going to launch AI at scale, and we're going to do it equitably for the whole campus. This was even before you had made the decision to come out of. So what's the chatter like? I want the insider baseball. What's the insider engineering chatter when the new CIO comes back and says, hey, we're going to do an AI platform for everybody? How do engineers react to that?
So we had a mix of engineers across campus who, and knowledge workers, right? Not just engineers.
Sure.
But have the reaction of, we don't want AI. Or some that did want AI, but were already in the camp of one major vendor. So they're like, that's great, but let's go all in on Anthropic. Or
right. We have to do Claude, or we have to do OpenAI. Right.
Exactly. And I did sort of feel like that as well.
Yeah.
I had my, my team that I was focusing on,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we had folks that, were AI averse, I would say. And a lot of those folks, interestingly enough, at this point, we've converted a lot of folks who are now, with Claude Code, a lot of the engineering focused AI tools and services have converted a lot of folks. We were all concerned what that would mean for campus. The main concern was, budget wise, all of this costs money. And at that time, it was even more expensive than it is now for most of those services. So that was a big concern for us, was that makes sense. How are we going to do this at scale? We have different parts of campus asking for different services or different types of AI tools. So we have researchers that need AI for specific things. We have designers who need AI for specific things. And can we really at scale provide the best options for all of these corners of campus?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we were all excited, I think, but we were kind of wondering how it would play out at scale.
It's sort of funny to me that in my experience, engineers don't usually worry about how are we going to pay for this.
I think in higher ed, it's a little bit different. I think we're all, all engineers are limited by budget, especially in higher ed. We famously across higher ed do not have budgets to just do whatever we want to do, like our friends in industry. So that's always a concern. There's tons of tools we would love to use, and for a variety of reasons, including budget, we may not have access to those. And so the other challenge here is proving that AI is worth the cost of entry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that we've all done a really good job of providing, the equitable access to the tools and services that we do have on campus, to experiment, allow folks to experiment, whether that's a sponsorship from us to, provide credits, or the vendors that we're working with to provide credits, or departments have a small budget to prove worth, right? To prove that these tools are worth paying for in the future. We've now crossed that line to where everybody is pretty much understanding this is a necessity at this point.
Yeah, it's funny because just to close out that thought of boots on the ground reaction, I remember when we showed, I had the CloudForce team in, and they showed the product for the first time, and somebody from somewhere in it may have been you, somebody pulled me aside and said, you may not have screwed this up. Like, we're not sure. And then it turns out maybe we did, but we didn't. We've launched a really robust product to campus. I don't think anybody from a vendor perspective was ready for the kind of scale and prime time that we were going after.
Yeah.
And I think CloudForce has proven to be a good partner, even through the starts and stops and things. But we moved fast.
Yeah. The critical point there is that there was a time, and being totally transparent here, there was a time when I was trying to convince Mario and Cole, let's just go with one of the big vendors. I know it's the dollar amount at the time was crazy.
It was astronomical.
It was astronomical. And it could have been a good thing, but I actually, looking back now, and you both had kind of talked me down off of that ledge, being like, I don't know if it's the right thing to do right now. I was still driving. Let's go with Anthropic. Let's go with OpenAI. Let's just do it for campus. At that time, I agree now that it wouldn't have been the right move. And the reason being is because a solution like we got with CloudForce, with Nebula One, which we've rebranded to UT Spark, provided three things. First of all, it provided model access to the different vendor models. So chiefly OpenAI models and Anthropic models. Folks, for the most part on campus, who will be accessing this tool didn't know what they wanted.
Right.
A lot of them were not a part of a team that has already used these tools, or they used them personally. They had no idea. And a lot of folks didn't care.
Yeah.
They wanted to inference and chat with models and see how they liked it and see if they could get benefit from that. And if we had gone with one of those big vendors at that price tag at the time, that's a huge investment for the university. And
multi-year
lock
in.
Exactly. And so I think, we've graduated to a point where in the future it may make sense to try to do a big platform for campus, and a lot of higher ed is moving in that direction. But the big benefit that we've gotten from this decision to run with CloudForce that allows us to connect to different models is our campus then has the autonomy to experiment with these different models from these primary services, the big vendors, and choose what they like the best. And then we also have modes of procurement where if you really love Anthropic, we do now offer those licenses to campus if you have the budget. OpenAI, ChatGPT, we do have the ability to provide you with those licenses. I think it was a really smart move that we made overall.
Yeah, and I'm curious, Mario, you spent at that time, you were spending, like I said, with learning technologies, but really with the provost office.
Yeah.
Is where those were your primary connecting points. So Cody has this story of like the fiefdoms rising about OpenAI or Claude or whatever it happened to be. What were you hearing at sort of the top of the academic food chain?
Yeah.
What did those concerns look like? And was there excitement there? I know Julie and Art Markman and team were focused on Sage, but that's a small part of that overall portfolio.
Yeah. I think that one of the conversations that we would have a lot is how is it going to impact teaching and learning? I think Sage was one part of it, but really starting to unpack the use cases, who might we consider to be champions in this space, to put these tools in their hands and start to incorporate it into their pedagogy. So it was more than Sage, I would say. It was really, let's put all the cards on the table and see what works for UT Austin.
Did you feel like there was a natural, a greater than typical or typical sort of reaction from the teaching and learning community to the technology hype cycle?
You know what? It kind of ran the gamut, to be honest, right? I think that there were some real cheerleaders at that point, folks that were very much, bullish, as you like to say, on AI. And then there were some skeptics, right? I think that there were mostly faculty who were concerned about academic integrity. That was the big...
But that is the concern, right?
Correct. And it still is, but I think it's shifting a little bit now that we're starting to hear stories of success.
Yeah.
I think that narrative is shifting a little bit, although we still have those concerns. Intellectual property, like I talked about earlier, was still a concern. But as we start to deploy more and more of these of Sage use across campus, even outside of Sage, some of the GPT stuff, some of the things that the API gateway or the AI gateway that Cody's setting up to allow students to access these LLMs through API access, we're starting to see a lot of positive change.
Yeah, I think what we've been able to do is by pausing to make progress.
Yeah,
we put our chips down on some. I don't know if they were the right ponies, if you will, like companies, et cetera, but the right approach.
Yeah,
right.
I would say so.
We did the lightest investment we could to benefit the most people, It was early days, innovative technology. We really wanted to see, as both of you have really beautifully stated, wanted to see how the community would react
Yeah.
Exactly.
before we figured out how to bankrupt our own organization.
Yeah.
I mean, keep in mind, I came in at a time where the organization was not enterprise technology, right? It was this loose collection of
It was three separate
organizations, ITS, EBITS, and AIS. And out of that collection of people, we created enterprise technology. We've since added data to insights, our data platform team, and we're building momentum almost like the AI story itself.
Yeah.
Right? Like we had to lay a really generalized foundation and a loose framework for success, and then see what the people could actually accomplish.
Yeah. That's essentially what we've been doing the last year, Cole, is laying the foundation, signing contracts, procurement, setting up the infrastructure. Like that's what we've been doing.
I know, man, but that's blocking and tackling, and we do it well across the whole gamut. It's really exposed in the AI space because it's new.
Right.
But what I'm so impressed with, and what these two gentlemen have done, is they've gone from zero to leadership in a year. And that's what makes me proud, and what I'm grateful for is that we built a loose framework, and you guys connected the scaffolding, and you built the platform that now our teams are standing on. I mean, you have to take a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
Cody, the fact that you are asking for Claude Code for other parts of the organization so that they can start to reinvent the way they work, that wasn't possible a year ago.
No, definitely not.
I mean, but think of that transformation in 12 months.
Yep.
And I think all great organizational transformations, if you have a catalyst, and in our case, we leveraged the year of AI as our catalyst.
Yeah.
And I think we embolden our teams through our, consistent engagements, blog posts, the things that we do, the way we talk about AI, the way that we walk with AI. And what I mean by that is how we actually use it. We gave our staff agency to build the connections in that scaffolding. And now we're starting to see that. So you guys, you should be really proud of the work you've done. It's not just supporting 70,000 students out there. It's also like driving massive internal change.
Yeah.
And how we operate as a campus.
Well, how can we make enterprise technology a leader in this space too? And I think that's something I'll brag on Cody a little bit. I think it's something that he's done really well with, his Tuesday series. What is it? All about AI?
Yeah,
or
all things AI.
All things AI, which is only focused on enterprise technology, technical staff. And I think it is changing the narrative, right? We had a lot of
We gotta get
naysayers
that
at first.
recorded. Yeah. Get that as an extra.
We should totally do that.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'd love it. Anyways, I'm just saying, having these conversations with folks, being willing to put yourself out there, talk about the way that you use these tools is really changing how people think about AI, changing the way we work, Cole.
Yeah, it is changing the way we work. I mean, if I'm being honest, just this morning, and I use Copilot sparingly now that I have connectors in Claude and in Spark. But today I used it within Word, and I used it in a really novel way that I didn't think it would work. I get a lot of documents that come to me, and then I have to turn to experts in the organization to read through them and comment on them so I can give feedback to the executive that provides it to me. Because a lot of time it's a conversation that's well down in the weeds below where I would have the on-the-ground knowledge. So I gave this document to Mike Martell, our colleague who runs our data center, who will be key in the future story of our AI journey.
Yeah,
Definitely.
That's episode 2.
This is episode 2.
No, wait, excuse me. Of the AI trilogy.
I don't want to be mean here, but I'm the host. And I'll decide.
Just planting the seed.
I'll
man.
decide
I'm just
when.
planting the seed.
No, we'll do an episode live from the data center. How about
Sounds
that?
great.
That'd be great.
But he left extraordinarily thoughtful comments using Microsoft Word's commenting tool, right? So I have to get this back to another executive, and I asked it to summarize the comments specifically from this one individual. And I wasn't sure if it would work, right? Because it's not sitting in the document. It's in the metadata associated with the document. I have no idea how that works behind the scenes. And it pulls together this brilliant summary with inline links to the original document and everything. And I ask it, I want to send this as a standalone piece to this person. It authored a fantastic email, and it's now sitting in Microsoft Loop ready to go. That saved me, believe it or not, that saved me probably an hour
Yeah.
hour and a half of time. And that's a ridiculously silly use of the world's most transformative power right now, but it's what we've enabled.
Yeah.
Like, I think you have to look at that. Like, we watch these demos and we have these dreams of an agentic future and all of these things, and we almost poo-poo this ability to move data around or craft words, but that's become sort of the way many people on this campus get the mundane work done.
Yeah, folks have the autonomy to choose how to use these tools.
Yeah.
So what's interesting is in the AI studio, a lot of folks we right, we have tons of emails all the time, right?
Do you really?
Yeah, oh yeah. So some of our customers think that we will use AI because we're the AI studio to respond to emails and things like that. But as sort of our team ethos, we actually don't use AI to craft email and respond to folks. We could, but we don't. We kind of all feel the same way, that we don't use AI in that way. We want to keep the human interaction and connection. Yep. But again, it's your autonomy to choose to do so or not. For us, we're really trying to promote, you find a useful aspect of AI, we want to support you on campus. And this goes also back to the services that we're offering. We're here to serve campus.
Yeah.
That's our primary goal, especially in central IT enterprise technology. I want to enable campus so they can make the decision of how they want to use AI, what they want to use it for. We'll make sure that we have the data protections in place, working with ISO, and the contracts in place with the vendors. But however you want to use it, great, go for it.
Yeah, as long as we've built those guardrails.
Exactly.
And I think that was the win of the platform. Guys, we're coming up on the middle of the spring semester, believe it or not already. It happens fast.
Yeah.
And one of the seminal events in our AI journey was AI in a day last fall. 225 people, great day. I was shocked that 225 people would take time away from their job to be better at their job.
Day too.
To be better at their job, like Cody's sort of talking about. Mario, what events do we have? Are we thinking about doing any more of that kind of stuff?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I like you consider AI in a day, which was the event that we held last fall, a success.
Yeah.
So I think that one of our other responsibilities, in addition to deploying secure, safe tool sets, we need to also engage the community. So bringing and convening people to learn, to share how they're using, like your use case right there.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people would benefit from that type of use case. So what are the strategies we're using to bring people together, to convene them and bring experts to talk about what they're doing, how they're using AI, what are the possibilities? 100%. We want to do more of that. I wish I had more staff to do it.
So if you're listening, you can go to our GoFundMe.
QR codes on the left.
But remember to subscribe, like, and smash that notification bell. Is the way they say on the internet. But we have something coming up in April.
Yeah, we do. So we're partnering with the research group Good Systems and the Office of Academic Technology, and we're hosting on April 21st a responsible AI use in education event.
Mm-hmm.
It'll have several panels. I'm hoping to bring some of our vendor partners onto a panel to talk about responsible AI use and how they focus on responsibility and ethical uses of AI in their services. We're also working with the CFO to plan an AI in a day for finance.
I love that idea.
I know you do. This is a great idea, actually. And finance is just the tip of the iceberg, right?
Yeah.
I think we can go several
HR.
There's so many layers here that we can. Yeah. So that we're focusing not just general uses of AI, but we're focusing on what people do.
Yeah, like discipline.
We're focusing on their work and how it impacts their work, and we're bringing peers together to talk about how they're using it. So again, I think one of our big responsibilities is to convene community.
Yeah.
We've got the Team Space AI conversations where people talk about what's happening outside of UT as well as inside of UT. So it's just a way for people to have conversations about this technology.
Yeah. So guys, is there a place on the internet people can go to like learn about any of our stuff, like, do we have a website?
We do have a website.
What's our website?
tech.utexas.edu.
Holy shit, that's our website.
That is our website.
So you can go there and learn about all the things we're doing.
Yeah.
Guys, thanks so much for being part of this conversation today.
us.
This won't be the last. So just remember that
Sure.
we will do this more and more and more over the coming months, weeks, years even. Next time I want to go a little bit deeper into some of the technical specifications and some of the ways we're really thinking about architecting our AI strategy. We have some amazing things on the horizon with the AI Studio.
We do.
Potentially some large on-prem things that we're going to be doing around AI with some of our corporate partners. I just think that this is the start of a story that we can all be really proud of. And like Mario said, create this ripple effect from the center enterprise technology that ripples out across campus and across the state. And who knows, even beyond that. And I'm really proud of it. So for Enterprise Technology, thank you so much for tuning in for episode 2 from the Union Underground Studio. Thank you, Mario. Thank you, Cody. And
Thank you, Cole.
we'll be talking to you soon.
Sounds good.
Cool. See you guys.
See ya.
Bye.